In the quaint, picturesque town of Pineville, where everyone knows everyone and secrets are hard to keep, lived the Thompson family. They were a well-respected and prominent family in the community, known for their generosity and close-knit bond. At the head of the family was Robert Thompson, a charismatic and successful 55-year-old businessman. Robert was the kind of man who could light up a room with his charm and charisma. His wife, Margaret, had passed away several years ago, leaving him to raise their only son, David, who was now 30 years old. David Thompson was the spitting image of his father, handsome, hardworking, and equally charming. He had married his high school sweetheart, Emma, who at 28 was a stunning and vivacious woman with a heart of gold. Emma had always been the apple of Robert's eye, almost like the daughter he never had. Together, David and Emma lived a seemingly perfect life, filled with love, laughter, and the promise of a bright future. Robert Thompson had always been a devoted father to David, especially after Margaret's untimely death. The loss had brought Robert and David even closer, with Robert taking on both parental roles with grace and strength. David admired his father deeply and aspired to be just like him. Robert, on the other hand, saw David's happiness with Emma and found solace in their love, which reminded him of his own with Margaret. David and Emma had known each other since they were teenagers. Their love story was one of those classic tales of high school sweethearts who were destined to be together. They had grown up together, shared countless memories, and had supported each other through thick and thin. Emma was not just David's wife, but his best friend and confidant. After their wedding, Emma and David decided to move into the Thompson family estate to be closer to Robert. The sprawling property, with its charming farmhouse and acres of lush greenery, was the perfect place to start their own family. Emma quickly became a beloved member of the Thompson household, winning over the hearts of everyone she met with her warm and caring nature. Robert had always found Emma to be an exceptional young woman. Her beauty was undeniable, but it was her kindness and intelligence that truly captivated him. He admired the way she took care of David and how she managed their home with such grace. Over the years, Robert and Emma developed a strong bond, one that was built on mutual respect and admiration. As time passed, however, Robert began to feel a growing sense of loneliness. His successful business ventures kept him busy, but his heart ached for companionship. He missed the warmth and intimacy he once shared with Margaret. It was during this vulnerable time that his feelings for Emma began to evolve from fatherly affection to something deeper and more complicated. Emma, too, found herself drawn to Robert in ways she didn't fully understand. She admired his wisdom and strength, and often found comfort in his presence. Robert was always there to lend a helping hand or offer a listening ear whenever she needed it. The lines between familial love and something more began to blur, but neither Robert nor Emma dared to acknowledge the growing tension between them. The turning point came during one of the many family gatherings hosted at the Thompson estate. It was a warm summer evening, and the air was filled with the sounds of laughter and clinking glasses. David had to leave early for a business trip, leaving Emma and Robert to finish the night together. As the evening progressed, the conversation became more intimate, and the atmosphere grew charged with an unspoken tension. It was in that moment, as they stood alone under the twinkling fairy lights in the garden, that Robert's hand brushed against Emma's. A shiver ran down her spine, and their eyes locked in a gaze that spoke volumes. Neither of them moved, both grappling with the realization of what was happening between them. It was a forbidden attraction, one that defied the bonds of family and propriety. Over the following weeks, the relationship between Robert and Emma became increasingly complex. They found themselves seeking each other out, drawn together by a magnetic force they couldn't resist. What started as innocent touches and lingering glances soon escalated into stolen moments and passionate encounters. Their affair was a dangerous dance, teetering on the edge of discovery, but neither could bring themselves to end it. Emma was torn between her love for David and the undeniable attraction she felt for Robert. She knew that what they were doing was wrong, but she couldn't deny the intense emotions that consumed her. Robert, on the other hand, was willing to risk everything for Emma. He had fallen deeply in love with her and was convinced that their connection was something special, something worth fighting for. As their secret affair continued, the guilt and fear of being discovered began to weigh heavily on both of them. They knew that their actions could shatter the Thompson family and destroy the lives of those they cared about. Yet, the pull between them was too strong to resist, and they found themselves caught in a web of desire and deceit, unable to break free. As the months went by, the relationship between Emma and Robert deepened, and their secret affair became more reckless. They began to meet not just at the office, but also at Robert's home, taking advantage of moments when David was out. The thrill of the affair and the forbidden nature of their relationship only heightened their passion. Yet, unbeknownst to them, David had started to notice subtle changes in both his wife and his father. The secrecy, the stolen glances, and the unusual behavior were slowly raising his suspicions. One evening, David returned home earlier than usual. He had planned to surprise Emma with a romantic dinner, hoping to rekindle the spark in their marriage. As he entered the house, he noticed an eerie silence. His heart sank as he walked through the hallway and saw his father's bedroom door slightly ajar. Curiosity and dread filled his mind as he approached the room. What he saw next shattered him completely. Emma and Robert were in bed, naked and entwined in a passionate embrace. The shock and betrayal overwhelmed David, and his vision blurred with rage. Unable to process the scene before him, he let out a guttural cry that echoed through the house. Emma and Robert jolted apart, their faces pale with fear and guilt. The room fell into a tense silence, the gravity of the situation sinking in. David's anger was palpable, and his eyes darted around the room, searching for something, anything, to vent his fury. His gaze fell upon the hunting rifle mounted on the wall. It had been a gift from his father, a symbol of their shared passion for hunting trips during his childhood. In that moment, it became an instrument of his vengeance. David lunged for the rifle, his hands shaking with a mix of adrenaline and fury. Robert and Emma scrambled to get out of bed, their nakedness forgotten in the face of David's wrath. Emma tried to plead with David, her voice trembling with fear, but he was beyond reason. The betrayal by the two people he trusted most had pushed him over the edge. David's mind was a whirlwind of emotions: pain, anger, betrayal, and a deep, searing rage. He aimed the rifle at Robert first, his father's face reflecting a mixture of regret and fear. Before Robert could say a word, David pulled the trigger. The sound of the gunshot was deafening, and Robert's body crumpled to the floor, lifeless. Emma screamed, her voice a haunting echo in the silent house. She tried to run, but David was quicker. He turned the rifle on her, his eyes filled with a cold, unyielding determination. Emma's pleas for mercy fell on deaf ears. The betrayal had cut too deep, and David was beyond redemption. With another pull of the trigger, he ended her life as well. The aftermath was a gruesome scene of blood and silence. The once warm and loving home was now a place of horror. David stood there, the rifle still in his hands, his mind struggling to comprehend what he had just done. The reality of his actions began to sink in, and the enormity of the situation overwhelmed him. The sound of the gunshots had alerted the neighbors, and it wasn't long before the police arrived. David offered no resistance as they apprehended him, the rifle slipping from his grasp. The story of the Thompson family's tragedy spread quickly through the small town, leaving everyone in shock. David's actions had brought an end to the betrayal, but at a devastating cost. David was taken into custody, his mind a blur of regret and sorrow. The legal proceedings that followed were swift and severe. The evidence of his actions was irrefutable, and David was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The once prominent lawyer now faced a future behind bars, haunted by the memories of his actions. In the small town of Pineville, the aftermath of the Thompson family tragedy left a lasting impact. The community was left reeling, unable to comprehend the events that had transpired. The once close-knit town was now a place of whispered conversations and lingering sadness. David's incarceration marked the end of a tragic chapter in Pineville's history. He spent his days in prison reflecting on his actions, grappling with the guilt and remorse that consumed him. The weight of his decisions bore heavily on his conscience, and he knew that he would never escape the shadow of his crimes. Emma and Robert were laid to rest in the local cemetery, their graves a somber reminder of the consequences of their actions. The town mourned the loss of 2 lives, cut short by betrayal and violence. The Thompson family home, once a place of warmth and love, stood empty and abandoned, a haunting symbol of the tragedy that had unfolded within its walls. As the years went by, Pineville slowly began to heal. The memory of the Thompson family's downfall served as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the devastating power of betrayal and the consequences of unchecked rage. The community came together, supporting one another in their grief and finding solace in the strength of their bonds.